Hi ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 17th of January 2019. So by my estimations of where we are with this, we are obviously like 3 days away from this kind of blood moon. I guess that's happening 20th, 21st, and this full moon, and this time when we are very, 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 very close to this system now. We're very, very close to the tail, but we're kind of running parallel to the tail, really. It's coming in almost like perpendicular, but it's more probably somewhere between. It's not perpendicular, you know. You've seen my model and the way it comes in. You can't say it's coming. I can't say it's coming in literally perpendicular, but it is It's probably about 30-40 degrees it's coming in off. But we are seeing the aspects of the tail right now. We're actually seeing right through the debris actually of the tail. We're getting lots of interesting shots. One interesting shot I've seen, which has been the Rap the News, did an amazing video where he shows I think it's called "What the Hell's That in the Sky?" You know, where Jeff P got that amazing shot on the 24th of December 2015 where he showed two suns, and where Becky Lewis got that amazing shot on the 22nd of December 2 days before, and Matt Rogers got his really famous 15th of August 2016 shot where you also saw the debris. You know, there were these video makers that suddenly got these shots, and it put them on the map, and it also made them real, where they got their real absolute confirmation, and from that point on they realised that this thing was totally real. It was utterly real, and they realised how few people were actually able to see this, and they became dedicated filmmakers that wanted to really show the news, the real news, what's really going on. And so anyway, Rap the News put a video up. He put it up it came out about 2 or 3 days ago. 2 days ago, maybe 3. And I'm just sitting here in the sunset actually, so I'm not too sure what the exact time is right now. Phone's gone dead. Well, it's very quiet anyway. And if I press it, it's probably it doesn't really matter anyway. I'll explain it all in a second. But it's just before sunset. I reckon it's a couple of hours before sunset. Anyway, in Rap the News' video, you see tumbling is the word that comes to mind, because you've got this incredible depth of field as you're looking into this kind of like these passing asteroids, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. It's daylight, and they're twisting in space as they're going along. And this guy's just giving this narration as he's just observing what he's seeing. It is probably the most... what I was going to say, it's astronomical. It's just utterly insane. It's just an utterly insane shot, but it's exactly what I'm expecting it to be. You know how it comes in on my pathway. This is exactly what we see. We run parallel to those, and those rocks are absolutely massive, because that's still a great deal of distance away. So those big rocks that you're seeing are huge. They're like the size of each one of those is probably about I don't know, an eighth. The big ones are probably about a seventh, an eighth, maybe a bit smaller than that of the moon. They're big things, and they're just spinning in space. They're big. They're big. And so when I saw that, it's quite alarming, really, isn't it? But you have to also understand, we're kind of running, that might be coming in towards our orbital track at a 30, but we're kind of running neck and neck with it now. And by the time it's sort of catching up to us, closer and closer and closer and closer. but we're looking across down the tail. That's why you get these two different speeds, because you're not looking straight through. You're looking at the tail through an angle, which gives you this odd kind of depth of field kind of perspective through the tail, where you see the furthest ones moving, the closer ones moving faster than the furthest ones, and you're really getting that kind of depth of field and that proximity. But there's a tremendous amount of proximity. It's this type of proximity and these type of movements between two different sort of like things. You can imagine certain things giving off the same amount of heat, coming from the same sort of area, moving at different speeds. It's a big way of how they're learning to map the universe. You know, our pictures of the universe for our telescopes that we're using today, trying to get more information from the more depth of field, and you've got enormous depth of field there. Just at first view, you can literally see. You've only got to watch that for a little bit of time. You can see that ain't no CGI. That ain't no CGI. That's utterly legitimate footage, exactly what we're expecting to see, but very, very alarming. If we were to go through the tail of it, it would be utterly catastrophic. But by my maths, we're literally going right. It looks from our perspective like we're going right up the tail, and we're going to go right across the front of it. That's what's going to happen. We're going to go right across the front of it and out the other side before it reaches that point where we were right in front of it. That's pretty much exactly what's going to happen, in my opinion. And it's going to be a very, very, very close shave between sort of like us getting past it, but we will get past it. You know, the space that I go to, I'm told, I said, it misses, doesn't it? And the message I got was, yes, it misses. It is not human karma. It is deemed you are not a race of war, but you are a race subverted with war, and that will now change. And so those that there'll be all those that are going to run for their war and that sort of stuff, and so anyway, so I yesterday, you know, that's where it is. You know, you've got all the sightings. We've had lots of other big sort of sightings. I haven't managed to get back to Steve about doing anything about getting onto his show or anything. I've been so busy because I've had a bit of an odd kind of been in a bit of a kind of odd chicane sort of space, because I just didn't really know what to do. And then I got a message from Steve saying, well, tell us what you want to do if you want to do a show, blah blah blah. And I got back to him and I said, Steve, it's such a mad time. I'm running around like a blue-ass fly. I was really late, but getting back to him. Sorry about that, Steve. It's been a bit of a mad one this end. But you know, I'm living down on the levels. Like I said, I've been living down on the levels in Somerset, which is this place that does seem to have a history of flooding. It is kind of like it was the sea before we got the Dutch to drain it all out for us, so we could get access to the peak below it. It used to be the Sea of Avalon, although I don't know if it's called the Sea of Avalon. I guess it was, but the Avalon Sea or whatever it was. But that's where King Arthur's sword was kind of like supposedly somewhere down there. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful place for me to go and write and to be very, very creative. You know, I've always been very, very drawn to that area. And I went to see my mum, who's just got the news that she might have found this council flat, which is really, really good because she is in an exposed area. We've got her staying on a campsite, but she is in an exposed area in her caravan. She's warm in her caravan at the moment, and that sort of stuff. But I went to see her and she was like, I found this council flat exactly where she wants it to be and that sort of stuff, and she's doing really well at the moment. She's doing really well, and she's completely, you know, she's medicine free and that sort of stuff, and she's basically, you know, she's always down the ashram doing a Hare Krishna, singing and blah blah blah. She's very happy at the moment, you know. She's really, you know, when I came back this time last year, I was convinced it was going to come in, but my mum was so sick and I was so torn apart by everything that I had to come back. And I thought, I had to really come to that place with this whole thing and think, well, if I'm meant to die now, I'm meant to die now. And I know that sounds really crazy to go through this, but when you see this thing, and you know, when you see this thing, if you ever want to see it, if you want to see it, and many people might think, why would I want to see this thing? You know, why would I want to see something that? Why would I want to see it? You know, and for me, I can't be an activist and that sort of stuff, and then not look at the real problems that are going on. Even though some people tell me this isn't the real problems that are going on, but for me, I can't do that. If I'm going to look at the real problems, it means really looking at the problems, not this kind of greenwashing environmental kind of story of looking at the problems, but having to use some sort of story to create some other story to kind of like, so we don't, we're in a situation where we can't look at any truth at the moment. We can't look at any truth whatsoever. So we have to talk in these other kind of parables of truth about environmentalism and that sort of stuff. We carry on doing the same thing, except we do it 1,000 times worse every time we talk about kind of like rectifying these problems. Have you noticed that? We get together and say we've got to act to change the climate, and then the grand plan is to manufacture 1 billion cars. And I know, don't get me started on this, and I know what I'm like, you know what I mean? And I know I have this little thing and this little place I go to with this, but it's a massive, massive, massive thing for me. Because it puts me in a heavy place, because I have to see this thing coming in. And in my own community that I love very much, around Glastonbury, around Brighton, and around Bristol, and sort of like in so many parts of England, I've got little friends here and there, and all the rest of it, that I feel heavy when I'm talking about this. And I know that I've had to charter this, because if I don't charter this and I can work this out, then and I don't do this, then who would do the Dobbs timeline? Who would put that information together? If I didn't put that together. Clearly you don't need brains, because I ain't that intelligent. You're just like, I'm just following the breadcrumb trail like everyone else really here. I'm just, you don't have to be too clever to work out there's this kind of like common pattern with all these different sightings. All you've got to do is you've got to be willing to wade in there against the sneerers and the hecklers that are going to do their level best to make sure that your reputation is destroyed by the time you get to the place where your message might be taken seriously. And you'll always be destroyed by the most nastiest characters, the ones that appear to be the nicest but are actually hiding the darkest shit. And I really feel that at the moment. I really feel that I'm powerless at the moment. I really, really do. And I have made many mistakes. I've said this is going to come in 4 or 5 times. And I've said it more than that. I've watched it coming in. This is the 10th time I've watched it coming in. But it was too easy for the sort of like the backstabbers to stab me in the back on that. And that's the bottom line. That's the truth there, It was just too easy. And I left myself open to that. And the problem is that once you stab someone in the back, you can always look at them in the face. But you'll always know you've stabbed them in the back. And I can't say, let's do something in England now. This thing is not real for people in England. I just went to see my mum, like I said, and she was like, sweetheart, she's looking at this place, she might be able to get it. Do I want to get her place? Because I'd have to move her in 3 weeks. And she said, she's talking about whether I want the caravan, and I really want her to have that caravan, because I thought she was going to die last time I came back in like I say in December, January last year, and then this time, and then she obviously she really was, she was at death's door, and then she suddenly I played her that Osho video where he talks about fuck being an adjective, a verb. He articulates the kind of like the enormous uses of the word fuck in his kind of beautiful way that he expresses the delight, the way we so enjoy saying it, using it in every descriptive way possible to emphasize the most incredible wonder. There's not just anger and everything else like that. Anyway, I played her this video, and where he explores it from a grammatical kind of like perspective, and he just brings you into hysterics. He brings you into total hysterics. And I played my mum this, and I was with Virginia at the time, and my ex-partner, and she was just like, she was watching it, and we were, anyway, next thing you know, my mum's in hysterics and that sort of stuff, and Virginia gives her a bit of healing and that sort of stuff. And the next thing, she's just stood up saying, fuck cancer, fuck that, fuck their chemotherapy, fuck the doctors, fuck the lot of them. I don't want nothing to do with their morphine, their painkillers, I don't want any of it. Fuck the lot of them. And that's what she it was hilarious, really. And she was all flesh and bone, and everything else had just really gone. She was just a beanpole. But she's she's so much better now, and I feel like she feels like she's had a bonus year. I kind of feel like I've had a bonus year from what I was seeing coming in. Obviously, I never know what it's going to be like when this thing's coming around. All I can do is observe it, and get attacked by those with just subtle little digs, subtle little digs that always make me feel like a bit decrepit and a little bit mentally ill for observing it. Subtle little things, you know. No one can. Everyone's got to come up with their little angle, just that twist that dagger a little bit, haven't they? But that is the kind of nature of this thing, because people don't really want to see it because they feel it will turn their lives upside down. And for me, I just looked at my mum and I was just like, well, look, you know, going back to the caravan, even though it seems kind of the two not linked up in any way, she said, I said to her, look, why don't you want to keep this caravan, don't you? You know, it's your kind of, it's just for your sanity, isn't it nice just to know that, you know, you've got the little council flat, but you've got the little, you know, if I lived in it, it'd be lived in by me, she'd be like, oh my god, any last little dirty mark on it, she'd be absolutely like, oh, you know, it's a sort of thing that all the time she has it really needs to be her sacred little space, because she's so tidy and meticulously clean that it's the whole thing. Her life is a temple, really. Her whole life is a temple. And so I'd have to sort of like, so I just said, you know, and she goes, what about your caravan? And I said, well, you know, she goes, why don't you go and get your caravan? And I said, but every time I sort of think about going out there, I'm always thinking, but then she's just like, you know, my little dream right now is that I'm going to get my council flat. I've got all my mates here, I've got everything all set up, I've got all my mates here, I've got my car, I'm blatting around, I go down the ashram every other day and I sing down there. She goes, I've got everything here, I'm all set up. She goes, but you loved going off to these missions, why don't you go and do your mission? Why don't you go and get your caravan and do a mission into the mountains? And then she pulled out €1,000 and she said, and maybe that will pay for the petrol or the diesel. And I'd just been fixing the fuel, fixing my truck, just non-stop trying to get to the bottom of this leak. And I had to rip all the pipes out in the end. And then I had this old tank that I'd been meaning to put in, this additional fuel tank, long-range fuel tank. And I stuck it in and realised that not only had I had this massive fuel leak where I was losing all this energy, and that I just needed to rip all that old stuff out. And when I ripped it all out, I just suddenly thought, you know what, fix all the leaks, fix everything. And I've chased eclipses for years and years and years. I used to travel all over the world. And I'm feeling heavy and weighted about this whole thing. And I don't want to be waitings like some doomsday. I want to be on a pilgrimage. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to head to the mountains. I don't know what it's going to do, but I'm going to pick my caravan up on the way. But all I can tell you is that right now, for most of you, you are a duality. And at the end of this, you're going to be a singularity. There's only going to be one, not two. And that's all this is. It's just you choosing. You know, you've all got two sides. You've got the really nice side and that sort of stuff, and you've got that other one. Yeah. That one. And you're all choosing. Many of you have chosen. And they're going to try and make that choice a little bit easier now. And Corbyn's in a very funny place at the moment, isn't he? Because now he's in a kind of like, he's in a catch-22 situation. Isn't he? Catch-22. If he goes to the meeting, if he turns up at the meeting, this is the point where, you know, everyone thinks it's Britain at the end of the barrel, but no, this is Europe at the end of the barrel. We knew they weren't going to come to a deal. We knew it was all going to be pushed into, and the last-minute negotiations force Europe into signing a free trade deal that allows Monsanto and all the rest of it. Unregulated free trade deal. That's what this is all around. Europe's got to sign it or they lose their line of credit. This is the pressure to force them to sign it. It's TTIP and all the rest of it. Except they were using all that time just to gauge the opinions and the people and how they were going to have to deal with that and the people's kind of feelings towards that. But these are all about massive free trade agreements, and that are all being now implemented through these kind of like, this is all about free trade. And if he goes along, he's going to be nudged into entering into an agreement, and they want to get this agreement signed as quickly as possible. All the pressure. So he's like captain of this ship, and he's seeing the agreement. If he goes along and signs the agreement, it means potentially that he's walking into leading this country into being this instigation point of dragging Europe into this free trade agreement that that's not really being talked about. Remember, this is all about free trade. It's all about unrestricted. You bend over the barrel and we can, as much as we like, over the barrel. This is what free trade, the real raw free trade agreements. So this is the type of pressure that's being put on Europe, even though it seems that the actual barrel is pointing right at Britain. It's actually Britain pointing the barrel right at Europe, threatening their line of credit with America to boot. And they're resilient to sign a complete and utter free trade, the sort of thing like Canada signed. You know, I can't remember. I'm not talking about the NAFTA. I'm talking about the Canadian agreement that's led to them being the most sued nation on the planet as of the moment. But of course, if Europe gets dragged into that, then that will become the most sued nation. They'll be fracking. You know, they won't allow it in France, will they? But as soon as Europe's kind of like signs of free trade, there is no restriction on trade. That you never have to stand in the way of that type of power. And there's going to be fracking all across Europe. There's going to be genetically modified food all across Europe. The whole thing all relies on Jeremy Corbyn getting to this meeting and putting the type of pressure on to sort of like to get this meeting. So he's resilient. He's going to be resilient to go along to that. He's going to see this whole thing and seeing how clever this is. It's one thing he might be realizing is just how clever and advanced and sophisticated and how pre-planned the scale of this has been. No wonder why he's nervous about going to the meeting. You think he's got to get us until March? No. They want to get this signed ASAP, because if they don't get their deal, it means that they're out. They have no tie to humanity in the way in which they want. But if they do get their deal, then Britain is being used by a dark force. And Britain has chosen to be that dark force's gun, which is now pointing at Europe. And this is not a good place to place yourself. This is not a good place for Britain to place itself when something like this is flying by. It's a very, very different footing to the last time when this flew by, when Elizabeth I was in power. She handled it very, very differently. Corbyn, you know, it's a tragedy that he's had to eye up this kind of iceberg as his only kind of like means of getting out of this now. But if he's starting to piece it together, and maybe he doesn't know anything of this is going on, because most people, as soon as they've got money, they think that money makes them important. Like some people like being seen in studies and that sort of stuff. They might not probably have ever read a book in their life and that sort of stuff. But if they have money and they have a study, they believe if they look intelligent, they probably are intelligent. That's the great danger of unintelligent people, is they believe they've just got to look intelligent to be intelligent. And it's a dangerous thing, and I just don't know. I don't think Jeremy Corbyn is one of those people at all. Quite far from it. But I think he's very, very, very affected by kind of old school socialist kind of politics. But because of his brother and because of a variety of situations, I think he might be starting to understand the bigger picture. He might be. Unfortunately, the people at the top know the least, because they're so full of self-importance. They don't need to know everything, because they believe they know it all. Hilarious. Hilarious. So technically none of this is happening. Dave Dobbs is a mad one. So I'm just on a pilgrimage one. I just thought, you know what? If I said, right, we're going to have a meeting on the thing, who would turn up for it? Honestly, nobody. Nobody. Really. I know that breaks my heart as much as it breaks anyone else's heart, but this thing is not real. This thing is not real. For my country. But it was so real once upon a time. For my country, it's just a strategy to start a war and kill people. The people who run my country. Not the people. The people who run my country. There's been different people. There's been better people that have been in control of my country in previous years. This is just a dark phase my country is in. A phase where it does everything in its power to start a war at any juncture. And it will do anything to spawn depleted uranium and nuclear power stations. Anywhere in the world it can, at any cost. At any cost. It will dump 40,000 times more radioactive waste than was generated by the Hiroshima bomb on Iraq. In the name of this. That's by the people who run my country. I'm not stepping out of the way of Nibiru coming out here in this pilgrimage. I'm just stepping out of the way of them. And it's giving what is going to likelihood to give the army so much power. And without human rights and protected sovereignty by the people that stood up and created this governance, where we actually, it's been a threshold of darkness and light battling through here. But when you actually break down this government and you bring about a stay of government and you bring it out to martial law, then you've got to ask what sort of power you're going to... Where are you giving the power back to? Are you giving the power over to the people here? Or are you giving your power right over to the army and to martial law and absolute chaos? What's going to... Remember, this whole thing is an orchestration and all the different players. And I've got a funny feeling that Jeremy Corbyn is not one of those players. But the rest of them are. The rest of them are. If you're in the Tory party, you're in there, you're one of them, you're one of their players. Well, you'll just dance for money. If you're in the Tory party and most of the Labour Party, but I've got a funny feeling Corbyn's not one of those. I've got a funny feeling he's not one of those. You're in a no one knows how this is gonna go. I just felt, you know what? What am I going to do? Stay like a superhero? I'm not going to try and dodge Nibiru. I'm not going to try and dodge asteroids. But if you send out a frenzy of soldiers and everything else like that and give them the type of power that is looking like you're going to end up giving them because you've created a situation where all the army goes crazy because the government gets shut down in all the chaos. And yet, which way does Jeremy Corbyn go? Does he go down this way, where he's facing, if we go leave without a deal, there's going to be hell, there's going to be an angry queen, because she's not going to be able to get anyone to sign her agreement beyond the sort of like British shores, which means all her future, in terms of domination, dries out. Her depleted uranium dream for the future dries out completely. If Corbyn doesn't get down and if they can't make a deal happen. So the best thing Corbyn can do is play that thing where he just drags it out. It's like being Monopoly and you got all the properties and that sort of stuff, or maybe and you go into jail and you just hide in jail, you know what I mean? Imagine if he's just hiding out of the game. Everyone wants him to play so they can do it, so they can get this deal done, but if he doesn't play and they can't get the vote, they don't know which way to go at the moment, and the only deal that the pressure is going to be put on Europe. If we leave, your entire car industry collapses, everything goes down the tubes and that sort of stuff. But if we stay and you sign an agreement that you'll all be eating genetically modified food, and within very, very short period of time, all your kids will be genetically modified, everything will be genetically modified. This world will be dominated. You will be a business product and nothing more. All of you already are, in their eyes. You are their commodity. But I can't stay there right now when this thing's coming in. It's too much for me. That would do my head in. It would totally do my head in. Just waiting for this thing to come in. I need to be doing something for this thing. And I need to be in connection to my higher place. And I cannot be King Cnut. I cannot stand on that. Sit down there on the levels and just watch this. And I cannot put all my friends through this situation of watching this come in and knowing how awkward they must feel. That Davey's a little bit special needs at the moment, and so I just feel we've all got to do this in our own special way. So look. Sunset. It's getting a bit darker now, so I know it's. I don't know what to do now, other than go on an adventure. And I suggest you do the same. I suggest you spend more time doing and less time thinking, and just do stuff. But no doubt there's been way more depleted uranium dumped in wars that we just don't know about in Eastern Europe, and messy. All from money. All from money and hate. Greed. Strange type of power, isn't it? Ugly type of power. And this is what we're going to give all our power to. Reverse everything that the Wat Tylers and the revolutionists who try to bring this into the people's hands. But if you carry on with this angle now, all you've got is kind of like a bank collapse. I mean, it's a car crash situation no matter which way you slice it. You know, I wrote a book in 2012 saying, do not leave Europe. Whatever you do, do not leave Europe. You know, just trying to, you know. I lived outside the garden in a pink rickshaw, wearing a bright yellow suit, screaming it out, just to show you that the story the Guardian runs is nothing to do with any reality whatsoever. That it's got no bearing. They run a story that's leading to a different place, to a specific place. It's an agenda. The whole thing's an agenda. All the newspapers are part of that agenda. They run a story. And the story is absolute spewing, depleted uranium dumping bullshit, just to lead you into a place of hate, where you are unprepared for what's coming up, and all for hard cash. I love the new Brexit movie where they've come up with this new character they're blaming for it, just to try and overshadow from the fact that it wasn't Murdoch and his cronies that drove it, the media and everything else like that. Like it was just one little guy that got their good little baddie who got the money, who probably did lots of the campaign managing and that sort of stuff, but actually it was the media, it was the front cover of all those newspapers and the media that just pumped out Brexit non-stop. Created the whole story. This was a highly engineered, massive operation. Total piece of shit movie. Utterly ridiculous. Anyway, that's me, guys. Light's gone. Truck's fixed. I'm ready to go. I'm just going to load this video and I'm going to tell you good luck. Go where you got to go. By my reckoning, personally, when I think the actual perihelion point between the closest point between Earth and this twin tail object is going to be around about the 30th, which means I'm imagining I'm imagining the biggest change starting around about the 25th and going through to about the 5th of Feb, with maximum point around about the 30th. But we don't know, and maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about everything. But I tell you what, I'm just doing my best. I've just done my best in this. Can't do any more than that. Anyway, I'll overlay this. I'll overlay the timeline on top of this, just so you haven't got to look at my boat for the whole kind of like through the whole of this video, and sort of like and let you do what you do. I'm just trying to stay in the moment now. Mum's in a good, beautiful place. She's so happy. I had a chat with my brother. He's happy. I've had a bonus year already, and my mum's had a bonus year. This year's been a bonus year for me, for all of us. Maybe next year will be a bonus year as well. And if it's not, and this is when it's happening, I promise you, you are so in for the bonus year. All you have to do is stay present through this. They're going to try and pull you out of that presence with whatever story they're going to throw at you. And you could very possibly just see this, everything I'm offering as another story. What I'm trying to do is help you see that, what's happening. Because the first thing that people do when they discover Planet X, the most common thing that seems to be is they seem to find God. You know, like when someone becomes terminally ill, they suddenly find God. Yeah, don't take long. Well, it certainly don't take long before you start looking. And when you discover this thing, no doubt you might do the same if you haven't discovered it yet. I feel like an adventure. I feel like an adventure. And there's nothing I can do in the UK right now. Can't catch asteroids. Can't stop tides. Can't drive through snow really. I've got no sort of thing. So if my mum gets buried under snow, all I can tell her is just to load it up and that sort of stuff. Keep loaded up with food. Make sure she's loaded with food, loaded with gas, loaded with heat, so she can keep the roof warm and stop the snow settling on the roof. You know, just keep it up there so it constantly keeps going and that sort of stuff, and do all those sort of things. And she's in a great space at the moment. She's got all her friends nearby. You know, she's just like, go and have an adventure. I mean, she don't think it's going to be real. Oh my God, there's a van going by there. He's got a flat wheel, but you don't know he's got a flat wheel. And he's got sparks coming out the back. He's got about 100 vehicles on the back by the looks. I think he does know his indicators on there. But yeah, that's it. And I'm waffling on and off. I'm so sorry it's not been clear. I'm just a little bit I'm a little bit perplexed of what I'm doing myself. I'm doing something, and right now I need to be doing something. So, alright, lovely people. Like I say, good luck. Sorry, I know it's all waffling on. Like I say, there's no advertising or anything on this. There's no trying to sort of get money out of you or anything else like that. I appreciate for that money, that when people help me get that timeline down and sit down and do that timeline, you know, it was just because I had so little money at that stage, and I just really wanted to sit down. I just didn't know how I was going to find the time, the effort, and da-da-da-da-da, and that money gave me that little bit of commitment to push through and say, no, come on. Let's do this. Let's make this work. And so I did that. And I appreciate that. But, you know, Oh, and there was, yeah, I did get some money before when flying out to America that time. Tom, that was you.